Okay, grown black folks talk on the climb on a gray October day, which is just right for this topic. The political consequences of not taking vaccines and hoping others die. Some numbers came out, and they have been supported and backed up by numbers coming out previous to this, but the CDC has put out some information. More Republicans have died of COVID-19 than Democrats. Now, if you've kept up with politics in the past 2 years, you already kind of understand how that is. Close to the time of the election, there was already by November a data that was showing that people were dying 6 times faster in counties that were going for President Trump, former President Trump, versus present President Biden, which would tell you already that 6 times more Republicans were dying than Democrats. Now, if that kept up, I mean, there are more Democrats. And at first, the big cities and the big states, which are Democrat-led, were suffering much more because there's more people and more density. But after a while, you could tell if this keeps up, more Republicans are going to end up dying of this than Democrats. Now, to understand how terrible a human tragedy this is and unnecessary, the electorate is about 50% Democrat, 18% independent, and only 32% Republican. So you have a smaller group of people that has now experienced more deaths from COVID-19 than a much larger group of people. You know, and these are family members. These are, in many cases, families that were already struggling because of the way the economy is. If you go look up the numbers of, if you take out the billionaires, but they spread actually, but if you go take that out, look at Democrats versus Republicans and who actually has, on the average rank and file, more money. So already you have situations where people are already struggling. And then you add COVID deaths. But see, like I said, not taking vaccines and hoping other people die. A lot of loud and proud crew here was talking about they want a civil war. Well, guess what? COVID-19 has handed the United States the combined number of combatants and non-combatants estimated by Ken Burns, more than 1 million deaths. Be careful what you ask for to happen to other people. I remember that I confronted online a very loud person, and I said, oh, okay, so you don't want to take the vaccine. You don't want to be mandated to take the vaccine. But you don't care, you don't want there to even be a vaccine, but you don't care about anybody else dying around you. And you certainly, from your rhetoric, don't care about people like me. So ask me this. Is your final solution for COVID-19 just to be that the old and the poor and the non-white die? Is that your idea of a final solution? He didn't answer me. Because he knew that I had backed him into a corner. The final solution is the ideals of Hitler. But hey, on January 6th, when people rolled up with their, we've seen this, when people rolled up with their Confederate and even their baby Nazi flags. See, you have to peep game on stuff. If you do your history, the Nazis took a lot of inspiration from the Confederacy. And they took inspiration from atrocities that were done as black people in the South, even after the war, would gather together and systematically murdered. Read Isabel Wilkerson's Cast if you want more information. Also do some reading about how there are a great number of white people who are terrified. You want to know why there's school shootings in places like Uvalde? Because already demographically, there are more elementary students who are of African American, Asian, Latino, and Native combined ancestry than there are of European ancestry, which is a nice way of saying that in less than 30 years, white people among adults are going to be outnumbered. This actually is already beginning to be the case in certain states. So if you had an enlightened white nationalist leader, though, what you would do is that you would lead your people to get vaccinated. Because as long as the United States has a semblance of democracy, what you don't want to do is ream out your voting base. See, this is not the kind of mistake that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels would have made. because they truly had an appreciation of how to misuse the power of the people. These were the greatest, Hitler is one of, and Goebbels are two of the greatest demagogues and propaganda masters of the 20th century. They would have not weaned out their voter base up to 1933 because Hitler was democratically elected as Chancellor of Germany. So if you really want your Confederate and Nazi flags, even Jefferson Davis, when he put together the Constitution for the Confederacy, he basically took the United States Constitution and kept all laws enforced except the ones that had to do with the federal power. Even Jefferson Davis was sitting up here like, well, we have to use what we have. So you're supposed to, if you want to be a white nationalist, you're supposed to actually study why, for a combined 16 years, the people you admire were successful. I mean, you ought to be able to do better than 4 if you study. Ain't nobody studying nothing. So President Trump let his people go ahead and freeze anti-vaxxism into their political position. Is he in office today? He is not. Was he, at that time, arguably the most powerful man on earth, able to protect his wife and child from getting COVID? He was not. Up here talking about Justice Amy Coney Barrett had COVID in the late summer. Late summer goes to September 21st, and you all up there sitting around there cozying up with them at a big old super spreader event to celebrate her getting nominated. See, that's what happens when you don't study. So, you lose elections in narrow states based on close races in counties that have had 6 to 7 solid months of your voter base being reamed out by COVID-19. No vaccine. They won't do mask mandates. One of the Dakotas went on and had the Sturgis rally in the summertime. 500,000 people showed up. Nobody masked up. Nobody vaccinated. Nobody social distance. They talk about this is for freedom. I sold out of an entire investment because this man decided to get out of pocket and decided to get out there and support this. By December, 1 in 1 every 1,000 people in that state was dead. They were alive in August. They were dead by December. That's how completely that state allowed itself to be reamed out. So Joe Biden is up here talking about the pandemic is over. You know why? Because he believes what Napoleon Bonaparte said. Never interrupt your enemies while he's making a mistake. Never interrupt your enemy while he is making a mistake. Since Democrats tend to have a higher vaccination rate, and since Democrats still are more comfortable wearing masks in crowded spaces, since Democrats pay more attention to these things, Joe Biden knows full well what's going to happen over the winter. And even before the election, because it's turned cold in some places earlier than others, he knows what's going to happen. The Republicans will continue to ream out their voter base, which over the next decade, because they already are a smaller voter base, it's going to make it harder and harder and harder for them to win elections. So this is what happens to you when you don't take a vaccine hoping that somebody else dies. Remember in the previous video, I talked about how scarcity mindset messes you up. You feel like you're not appreciated. You feel like you're not respected. You feel like you're not getting access to resources and nobody cares. So you go out, you do stupid things for vengeance. A lot of Trump supporter behavior really marks some of the same things. People voted for President Trump because they needed a change and they were hoping that he would move the country's resources back to help people like them. I respect that fact. There's a lot of problems happening for a lot of people in the country. And they were willing to accept everything that came with it. The problem is it didn't work. And now they feel like the rest of us The 68% of us who really should not have our election bill challenged seriously anywhere, such Democrats and independents are 68% of the electorate. They feel like we don't care. They feel like we don't care. So they're just going to do what they want to do and enjoy their freedom and live how they want to live, and are dying at a faster rate. So what happens is you follow this mindset to the end. You get into these emotional patterns, and you end up paying a heavy, heavy price for it. I get very disturbed when I see men of my own hue sometimes coming on to black women's videos talking about they're basically waiting for the economy to collapse, and even on videos put together by black men talking about they're waiting on the economy to collapse so that black women will come back under them. Whenever you do this, the scripture says in the book of Proverbs, he that digs a pit falls into it. Over in the book of Ecclesiastes, it said, be careful what you say in the presence of the angel. Because what ends up happening is the bad that you wish on others becomes your fate. This is the origin of the statement, drinking poison hoping that others die. That's where that comes from. We see this behavior from the top of the society down to the bottom in the United States. It's not a good situation, but I laid it out for you so that those of you in my subscriber base can recognize those patterns in yourself and avoid them. There really is enough opportunity, enough resources, even with a recession, in order for everybody to get what they need out here. And there really is. I'm going to put some different content creators. I'm going to put up JT's Automations, and I'm going to put up Stephanie Perry, and I'm going to put up Black Women Making Money, so that you can really shift your mindset. I'm also going to mention again, look up Stephanie Perry, also look up the Exodus Summit. You can buy some of the replays from that to find things that people are doing to make money in this very abundant time, even with a recession on the way. I want you to snap out of scarcity mindset like your life depends on it, because it does. Because it does. In the Sobering October Bible Study, we will be talking about where this idea comes from that your life has to be full of envy and strife and dissension and division, and what's the alternative, living a life that's full of love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, patience. Goodness, kindness, patience, gentleness, faith, and self-control. Because I learned it in King James, I always get it mixed up in my head. You have a choice as a Christian between how you want to live, because the Holy Spirit will help you do the latter instead of the former. But your life depends on it, because you do not want to be out here investing in patterns that will have you feeling deprived of everything, trying to take that out on other people that you want to put the blame on, and then end up getting jacked up. I've given this to you from the petty, which I started my local store, all the way up to these recent and tragic stats about deaths from COVID and how the Republican Party is reaming out its voter base. It's the same issue. I want you to snap out of any of that kind of pattern in your life. Your life, your family's life, your prosperity, your family's prosperity depends on it. Alright, enough for one day. I gotta go on and finish my walk, and then do what life requires and go home and deal with multiple aspects of fascinating paperwork. Y'all have a good day now. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.